Welcome, guys, to the Agent Unleashed. I want to talk today about something that I think is something that I developed that is not only going to save you time, but is going to increase the chances of you really signing listings immediately without wasting a lot of time, getting more listings and doing more business. And that's really what it's all about in this particular game. So this is all about how to sign sellers up and a listing presentation and not take longer than 30 minutes. So it's really super important. And I think that the general assumption that everybody probably already knows, and that is this, is when you are meeting with sellers, your likelihood of you getting a listing signed and a seller selecting you as the listing agent, I don't care if you are the only person that they're interviewing or if they're talking to 3 other agents. But the most important thing to really dramatically increase your odds of getting that listing signed and them selecting you as their listing agent is to build rapport with them. Okay, so this is so vitally important. Why do I say this? Listen, as you probably know, people do business with people they know, like, and trust. And so if you can get them to really get on your side, if you can get on their good side and really build that strong rapport so that they feel comfortable and confident. Those are 2 very powerful words. They feel comfortable and confident with your abilities to sell their home, get the highest possible price. That is what it's all about. So what we need to do is, if we are going to get a listing signed in 30 minutes, we have to spend all our time building rapport during that process. So I'll talk to a little bit about that a little bit later in terms of how can we build that rapport and what makes the most sense to do it. But what that means by definition is that by the time you get to their house and you're actually meeting them for the first time, and you want to see the house and you want to spend all this time building rapport, by definition, what this means is that you have to really do a lot of legwork, do a lot of homework before you even get to the house. And this is one of the things that I've perfected in the Agent Unleashed Collective, the coaching program that I have. I love talking about how we can do our legwork, our homework up front before we even get to a seller's house. And remember, in the old days, since I've been selling real estate since, oh my God, over 30 years. In the old days, we were trained to do these really long listing presentations. I remember that there were agents that taught me who were going out there providing these, this is before laptops, providing these huge, long paper listing presentations. And they would walk a seller through those listing presentations page by page by page. And they'd be out there meeting with the sellers for 3 hours. Can you believe that? I suffer from ADD. I couldn't do anything for 3 hours, let alone listen to some boring ass real estate agent going through a listing presentation for 3 hours. So number one, I developed a really tight listing presentation that really only addresses the market comps and the marketing strategy. And that's essentially it. But getting back to what I was saying earlier, and I'll get to the rapport, the best thing to do is really do a lot of homework up front. Get the sellers as much information about everything up front. So I have a pre-listing package. If you're interested, send me a DM with your email, and I'll send you my pre-listing package. But in that pre-listing package, it has all the information about me, my resume, my letters of reference, my testimonials, my marketing strategy. What else is in there? Some information related to the work I do for probates. My, did I say resume? My CV resume is also in there as well too. So number one you can get that to sellers in advance and ask them to read up on you and answer any questions or ask any questions. Number two, you can send them comps in advance. Here's the deal. I mean, this is really what I know to be true, is that sellers are really savvy when it comes to pricing. Nowadays, with the internet and everything else, it's really super important to know that sellers have a general sense for what their house is worth. And I mean, perfect example. I just listed a house for sale in South San Francisco. Um, we're going to list the house at $1.2 million. I think that it's probably exactly worth $1.2 million. I did not come up with that price. My sellers came up with that price. I went back, looked at comps, did my research, and realized, guess what? The house is worth $1.2 million. My sellers told me what to list the house at and what it's going to sell for. So there's no reason to have long, drawn out, protracted conversations about pricing in this day and age, because most sellers know what their house is worth and what it should be listed for sale at. So what you can do is, going back as part of your homework, get them the comps in advance. Get them your statement of qualifications in advance with your resume, your marketing strategy, testimonials, letters of reference, that kind of stuff. So the beauty is, you don't have to talk about any of this crap when you're at your seller's house. You've already given them a lot of the information in advance. Now, big thing to note, what's really super important. As you're giving this information to the seller too, you want to get the seller on the phone and ask the seller questions. You want to get detailed questions about, guess what? What's your motivation? What's your reason for selling? How soon do you need to be in Cincinnati? Are there any problems with the house? Are there any liens against the house? Is there anything about the house that I should know about before I come out and see it? What's your mortgage balance? How many other realtors are you interviewing? There's a whole slew of questions, which I talk about in the collective in my coaching program, that you can have these questions and you can have this detailed conversation with sellers before you even go out to the house. So here's the deal. You've asked all these questions and you've given all this information to the seller. And guess what? You don't have to go through any of this information in advance. Go through any of this information when you're meeting with them, because you also say to them, if you have any questions about any of the information that I've given you, please do me a favor and ask them now. Call me back, or let's talk about it on the phone. So the beauty is that once you go to the listing presentation and you finally meet the sellers and you finally see the house, the beauty is you don't have to talk about any of that stuff. You've already talked about it. You know who the seller is. You know what their motivation is. You know about any problems with the house, any issues with maintenance, any issues with the mortgage balance, whatever. You already know all this stuff and you've discussed it all with the sellers. So all you have to do in the course of 30 minutes is take 5 minutes and walk around the house. You don't need to spend a lot of time, walking around the house. You can ooh and ah. And as you're doing this, and this is the key to this whole conversation, as you're doing this, what you want to do is build rapport. Continue to ask them questions. Ask them questions about what are their goals? What is their motivation? What are their fears? What are their insecurities about doing this move? It's really important that not only that you ask these questions, even after you're done walking around the house, but here's the key. It's really important that you listen. You have to listen to what they're saying. Many times, most of us, when we're talking to somebody, we don't really listen to what they're saying, and we're we're just sort of like formulating in our own head, what's our next response? What's our next question going to be? But this is the best way to build rapport, is by really listening to what people are saying and then empathizing with them, and then using your own personal experiences as it relates to their situation, and they are going to love you for it. I'll give you a perfect example. About 2 years ago, I think I was in competition. I think there were like 3 or 4 real estate agents at this older couple. They were in their 90s, believe it or not. And I got this listing presentation scheduled. I asked them all these questions in advance, gave them all my information. And we literally just spent 20 minutes sitting in their living room talking about what their fears and insecurities were about moving all the way across country. They were originally from New York. They lived in San Francisco in his condo. They wanted to sell the condo and move back to New York. I mean, we're talking about somebody who's 92 and 95. They were super freaked out. They were really concerned about how they're going to make this happen, what are going to be the pitfalls and the troubles. And we just sat there talking for like 20 minutes. I really listened to their concerns and their insecurities and their fears and what they were trying to accomplish. And then, and this is the most important thing that you can do, is I told them about my own experiences, because I moved across the country twice. Actually, take that back, 3 times. I moved across the country in various positions for work 3 times. And so I could empathize with them. I could tell them, not only do I understand what it's like, the stress of moving back and forth, but I could also tell them, you know what, because of my experience, I know what you're going through, and I can make your experience really smooth and, make it just flawless, if you know what I mean. And they're listening to me, and they're really gaining a lot of confidence in my ability, because not only did they see previously that I've sold a lot in the city, I've been in the business for a long time, I know what I'm talking about with regard to pricing, but most importantly, they know that I actually been through what they're going through, and I can help them. I can help them with movers. I can give them really good advice about moving across the country and what's important and what's not important, and what to keep, what not to keep. I mean, we had a really, really good conversation. And in 25 minutes, I was the last, that's another key, try to be the last real estate agent. But in 25 minutes, they were practically in tears, because they really felt they had met a kindred spirit, somebody that knew what they were going through. And in 25 minutes, they signed the listing. Now, is everything going to be like that? No. But again, your chances are going to be so much greater when you can spend the time that you have physically in front of them, building rapport, asking questions, listening to their answers, expounding on those answers, and using your own personal stories in terms of how that can help them. I mean, it has worked for me time and time again, because as Maya Angelou said once, the famous poet, she said, people aren't going to remember, I'm paraphrasing, they're not going to remember what you said or what you were wearing, what kind of car you're driving, or what you look like or anything like that. People are going to remember how you made them feel. And your job as a listing agent is to make those sellers, when you're meeting them in a listing presentation, your job is to make them feel like they are the only person in the world that you want to take care of, that you want to comfort, that you want to have the most seamless, flawless transition in terms of selling their property. Okay? So that's essentially what it's really all about. There are so many other details to it, but what I wanted to do, just from a standpoint of, hitting the high notes, this is the best way to get sellers to fall in love with you, get the listing signed in 30 minutes. And if you want more information, like for instance, again, if you want my statement of qualifications, or if you want my seller questions that I ask, hit me up in my DMs, and give me your email, and I'll send that to you for free. No problems. But I can't even tell you uh, that this has got to be the best way. I have not found another way of getting listings in such a fast manner. I'll mention one other thing too, and here's something that I forgot to mention. Before you even meet them, what you could do too, and this has been super powerful, is if you've got a raving fan, a past seller that you worked with, and that past seller loved what you did for them, stay in touch with them, take them out to lunch, give them gifts, treat them like gold. But also, when you're having a listing presentation, have that seller call your past client, have your past client call the sellers that you're going to meet with and give a glowing recommendation about yourself. I'm telling you, social proof is everything. And if you can have one of your past clients call a seller in advance of you meeting with them, it goes so far. It is golden. I can't tell you how many times I've done that. And the person I'm meeting with in the listing presentation, the seller was like, oh my God, that was so cool that this woman called me out of the blue and gave me this glowing recommendation about you, blah, blah, blah. So that's a little pro tip for you. Really easy to do and really easy to make happen. So in my course, the Agent Unleashed Collective, you can go to theagentunleashed.com/masterclass. It's scrolling across the bottom right now. All you have to do is go to that link, hit me up. You can watch my free masterclass, book a call with me, and I can talk to you about how we can help you 10x your listings, 10x your income, take more time off, and really become a listing agent powerhouse. If you have any questions about this, definitely hit me up in my DMs. I'd love to talk to you more about that, but definitely go to my website, check out the free masterclass, and let's jump on a phone call and talk more about it. And with that, I hope that you have an amazing evening, and make sure that you follow some of these principles on your next listing presentation. Thanks so much.